Well, hello, my fellow classic rock guitar maniacs. Today on Awesome Riff of the Day and How to Play It, we're going to have a look at the track Breadfan by the 70s Welsh proto-metal group Budgie, the biggest band in Poland during the 70s. More on that in a bit. I'm also planning a full tutorial for this one in the coming days, with the solo, the bridge, the mellow interlude section included. But this riff video gives me a bit more of an opportunity to spend 5 to 10 minutes talking about just how bloody good these early 70s metal pioneers really were. So then, Budgie. Now, the very first thing I have to talk about is that band name. It's a really bad name, and I'm sure it did them very few favors in helping them to find success as a hard rock metal band during the early 70s. I had a personal theory that they thought it was really clever and ironic to name the band after something really innocent and lightweight, you know, like the Marshmallows or the Pretty Butterflies or some such thing, and then come out on stage and perform this heavy prog-laced hard rock and metal music. Turns out that my theory was spot on correct. That's exactly what their thinking was, it turns out. Like I said, I don't think that it helped their cause very much. Hindered it a great deal, if anything. But really, you know, in all seriousness, do you think that Black Sabbath would have made quite the same impact if they were initially named the Fluffy Pillows or some such silly thing? I think not. Silly name aside, they also had very quirky lyrics and weird song titles, Breadfan being one of them, and thought it was a good idea to inject a fair amount of humor into their prog-laced hard rock / metal. Also not the best idea, in my opinion. 70s rock and metal fans weren't the most humorous bunch. I simply can't imagine Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin and Judas Priest and Rush and Deep Purple, so on and so forth, going for the laugh, you know, with any of their musical output. Regardless, all of these self-imposed missteps aside, they did garner a rather large fan base in their home country of Great Britain, along with much of the rest of Europe, but especially Poland for some reason. They were bloody huge in Poland and would go on to become the very first metal, hard rock metal band to tour and play behind the Iron Curtain in 1982. In Poland, of course. Happily, it continues to this very day. Just check out any of their YouTube videos, and there's tons of Polish comments. I can't read any of them because I don't speak Polish. North America, on the other hand, Crickets. There's another silly band name, the Crickets. Well, you know, unless you're Buddy Holly, of course. This side of the ocean, they did garner a bit of a cult following in, of all places, Texas. But elsewhere, they were pretty much ignored. Except to some degree by the North American musician community of the mid-70s and 80s. Van Halen, for instance, when they were still a cover band in the mid-70s, had a couple of Budgie tracks on their live set list, including In For The Kill, a fantastic track. I personally was part of the musician community here in Canada during the late 70s, early 80s, and I, for one, discovered them pretty early on in my musical education as a teenager, and was heavily into Budgie back in the day. Now, musically, Budgie were somewhat of a musical cross between the crushing riffs of Black Sabbath and the more progressive leanings of Canadian band Rush. A power trio with lead singer bass player Burke Shelley, who not only sounded like Rush's Geddy Lee, but he looked like him as well. So the comparisons between the two bands were inevitable. Budgie are cited as major influences from numerous new wave of British heavy metal acts, including Iron Maiden, who also covered Budgie, Def Leppard, Saxon, Diamond Head, amongst many others, and consequently are cited by many other bands who were in turn influenced by those bands. Soundgarden, Alice in Chains, Megadeth, Queens of the Stone Age, numerous others, but especially Metallica, who would go on to cover Breadfan on their Garage Inc. album. They would also cover Budgie's Crash Course in Brain Surgery on the same album. Most people know these tracks through Metallica, and that's fine. But the originals, both of them are heavy as hell in their own right and well worth a listen. Hell, do yourself a favor and go listen to some Budgie. Crash Course in Brain Surgery, great track. In for the Kill, the track, as I said, that was often covered by an early Van Halen. Napoleon Bonaparte 1 and 2. And when you listen to that one, do not tell me you do not hear Iron Maiden in that one. Hell, where do you think they got that famous metal gallop from? From Napoleon Bonaparte 1 and 2. In the Grip of the Tire Fitter's Hand, another great track and strange song title. Guts, with its devastatingly heavy riff. The Mellower Parents is another great one, amongst many others. And when you do, remember, most of this is early 70s. You listen to this music and you can hear over and over and over again the influences that they created in so many other artists throughout the late 70s, 80s, and 90s metal scene. Budgie musically were a very influential band, to say the least, in the history of hard rock and metal. Truly one of the most underrated and underappreciated rock and metal bands from the 70s. They should have been huge, but alas, it just didn't happen for these guys on a worldwide scale, except Poland. But unfortunately, that's the way it goes sometimes. Sadly, Budgie leader Burke Shelley died just a couple of weeks ago, actually, at the age of 71, following numerous health issues accrued in his later years. Very sad. For my part, if this video can just turn on 10 people to the wonderful music of Burke Shelley and Budgie, then I'll be happy that I've done my very, very small part in helping cement his legacy as one of the true pioneers of early 70s rock and metal. But for now, let's learn how to play Burke Shelley and the band's great and arguably most well-known track, Breadfan, with the great Tony Berg on guitar. Well, we'll learn at least the opening riff and the verses. We'll cover the entire track in my upcoming full tutorial. So let's close in here a little bit on the fretboard and get started. All right, Breadfan by Budgie. We are tuned down 1/2 step for this one. Here's your tuning. Now, if you're watching this tutorial to learn the Metallica version of this track, the Metallica cover, you're gonna have a bad time because they play this one in E and Budgie play it in A, but tuned down 1/2 step. So that's Metallica play it 2 full steps lower. So you can just shift it around, but and just play it in this position. But as the song progresses, Metallica make quite a few different changes to it because it's in E. But for what we're covering today, you could just shift things around, I suppose, for the Metallica version. But this is about Budgie today, so let's forget about Metallica's cover of this one, shall we? So anyway, like I said, we're tuned down 1/2 step, and here's your riff. This tutorial should not take too long because we just keep repeating that riff over and over and over again, about 20 times. I don't know how many times he does repeat it, but it's a lot. And then they get to the first verse where he's playing just kind of a variation on that. So, and then a couple of power chords. So we're starting on the 5th fret of the D string. We're going to hammer on to 7 and then we're going to pick it. Kind of like that. You're going to repeat that 5 times. And the 5th time, you're going to pick it twice. So the first 4 times, you pick it once after the hammer on. The 5th time, you pick it twice. And then you're going to repeat the whole thing again twice. And the second time, you're going to pick it 3 times instead of once. So, up to that point. twice, 3 times, and then you're going to, the third time you hit that, you're going to hit it one more time, and then go immediately into this little descending run. So 7/5 of the D, 7/5 of the A, down to 3, up to the 5 of the low E. So when I say you, after the second time, after you hammer it on and you hit it 3 times, it's really 4, because the 4th time is the start of the descending run. So let's just run through that whole, that's the whole thing, and then you just keep repeating that whole thing like 20 times. And then we get into the first verse, which is basically the first half of the riff repeated twice. When you end on the double pick, and then you repeat it again. But while you're playing it during the verse, you're also playing along on the open A string. Into a G power chord, which you hit like 5 times. And then the 6th time you move up to G sharp. And then back into this. Back into a G, G sharp. And then back into that same riff that you were playing along with the open A playing along. So that's it. That's pretty much it for that one. That will lead you right up to the solo. And like I said, in the full tutorial, which is coming next week, there's a little riff that they get into. We're going to cover that. There's a mellow section where they get into some nice mellow A major add 9. Down to G add 9. Down to F major. Those sections there along with the solo. So if you were looking to learn that great classic riff by Budgie to Breadfan, I certainly hope that helped you out. And you guys take care of yourselves, and those around you. And I hope you're well in your little guitar corner of the world. I hope you enjoyed my little Budgie history lesson there. And we'll see you next time. Cheers.